Welcome to Okon Bros. This is Eric.
I'm Michael, and if you want to learn about the secrets of the universe, the law of attraction, mysticism, brohood, gambling, movies, pop culture, archangels, magic, good food, business, health, family, and mediumship, and now intuition, smash that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, press that little noti icon thing, and spread this video around like butter on a biscuit.
We love it. So today we have on Kim Chestney, author of Radical Intuition, a revolutionary guide to using your inner power. Thank you for coming on, Kim.
Thanks for having me. Excited to talk to you guys.
Yeah, we are too. So you made it your life's work to help people use their intuition for success. My question is, how do you define intuition? Is it spiritual, or is it like that gut feeling that you get?
Yeah, and that really is the underlying question that drove me to write this book to begin with, because the short answer is yes, it's spiritual, but it's also very practical. It's also an innate part of our human design. So there's really so much more to intuition than we've been hearing about, than you hear in the woo culture, or that you have, the world has told us over the years. I really feel like it's something that has been suppressed a little bit. We've been taught not to trust because there's so much power there.
How do you access intuition? Is this something that do you pray to it? Do you know that hunch? Is it psychic ability?
Yes, it's all those things. And
okay.
And the thing about intuition, and why it's so radical, and why I came up with that idea, with that title, is because it really is this full spectrum application in our life. It helps us to have psychic powers. It helps us to innovate. It helps us to create, build our businesses. Like everything that you just listed in the beginning of this program, intuition applies to everything we do. It's just the complementary force to our intellectual mind. We can do things by following our rational mind linearly, or we can use that sort of quantum thinking, which allows us to tap into that data of the universe that is pervasive and ever existent, and draw down that stuff that really leads to these elements of genius that we see in the world.
So is it your subconscious mind? Is intuition is it your subconscious kind of like screaming out from the background?
Well, yes and no. So if I like to look at it in terms of 3 levels of consciousness. The first, consciousness is the everyday place where we are. We're trying to be mindful, aware, awake when we become conscious, right? We're in that sort of middle zone. Unconsciousness is really all the things that we're not aware of, that's kind of pushed down underneath us, that we might be doing from reactions for our past, or really, conditioning in the world. But there's also this thing we forget about called the super consciousness. And that's where our intuition is really from. That's where that high vibe information is from, all of that data, all of the stuff that we can access throughout the world that's not linear, not local. So really, we tap into this super conscious element when we use our intuition, but it does come through the subconscious as well in our dreams. But when we're talking about things in the subconscious, it's more like instinct, right? Intuition's different. Intuition, we're fully conscious. We're fully aware when we use our intuition.
Really?
So, like, I feel like my intuition tricks me sometimes, because I like playing golf, and I'm going into the golf game and I'm like, I'm gonna play amazing, and then I play terrible. Is that intuition? Or is that like I'm not understanding my intuition, or is that just because I'm a shitty golfer? No, wait. Is it like, explain that to me. So is that my gut feeling just not working, or am I not tapping into my intuition correctly?
Well, we'd really want to look at how that feeling was for you. And in the book, I talk about sort of an intuition checklist and things we can say. Is this a genuine intuition? If you have a gut feeling that it's coming from this place of peace and power and a knowingness, really like a knowing feeling. Real intuition comes through as sort of a knowing and a feeling, but it's not emotional. It doesn't really drive you from that place of ego, right? So we have to kind of touch into if that was a genuine intuition, and you can really, put it through these elements to kind of figure it out. And so maybe it was a genuine intuition, and things just went a different direction throughout the day for some reason, because there's free will, and we live in a dynamic world where things change, and there could have been alignment in the beginning, and something shifted. But more likely is it was something where it was just more of a personal feeling or emotion than an actual intuition. And we have to make that distinction. It's important.
So is intuition predicting the future?
Well, I wouldn't say predicting. Because we're going to get into physics here, and I feel like there's a lot of different futures, right? So intuition helps us to think of intuition in terms of quantum physics. I mean, I think it's really important to understand that, I always say sort of old school thinking, rational thinking is sort of like Newtonian physics. It's linear, right? We can only understand thought processes as they evolve, and the things in front of us, the things behind us. So new thinking, which is more intuitive thinking, is more quantum. So we couldn't be having this discussion 100 years ago because people didn't understand that quantum physics existed. All this stuff was just magic. When intuition worked, it was like demons or something crazy, right? Now we understand the things like Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, all the interconnectivity that we see in physics and quantum reality, that all of a sudden intuition's not that crazy anymore. The fact that all the data is out there in the world. In my book, I talk with Jesse Schell about the universe being a simulation. And if there's a simulation, then we're like, computers able to download and connect with that information. And that's what our intuition essentially is. It's that pipeline to that universal energy of everything that's ever happened, will happen, is happening right now. Our intuition has access to that if we learn to understand it and tap into it. So yes, it can see things in the future, different futures. It doesn't know, there's not one predictable future, but it can also know things that are happening on the other side of the world or at a different time, or you can pick up on things from people's past because intuition doesn't know time or space.
How did you learn about that? Was there, like, you didn't come out of the womb, you're like, intuition's everything, this is it, this is super conscious law in yours. Like, something had to have happened that you were like, oh my God, I have to write a book on this. What was that spark?
Well, I mean, I have sort of been obsessed with it my whole life. So I think I had a little bit of a calling to, this has been sort of my purpose. But yes, when I was in my 20s, I had some really powerful experiences with intuition. One of which was just a simple thing. Like, I had my palms read by a gypsy when I lived in England, who told me I was going to be in a foreign courtroom in, was like 1994. And that was 1991 when she told me. So it was 3 years later. Oh. Sure enough, I ended up on jury duty that year. So just something simple like that made me realize, okay, it's possible to know the future. And going on that premise, like, there was no way she could have, there's no way she could have known that. I didn't even know the lady, like, for her to know that. So for me, it was a really foundational premise of, I need to understand how this works. And if she can do it, we must all be able to do it because we're all human beings. So it started there, and with some of my own personal experiences that I really had to rectify, because otherwise I was thinking I was going insane that I was doing these things. So it was really a personal mission to understand my world and my experiences, and and it kind of has evolved to this point.
That's incredible.
You talk about science. And then, it's not every day either. We have people on our show that talk about science or they talk about spirituality.
You're like marrying the two.
You're talking about them in the same vein. Expand on that. How is quantum physics spirituality?
I think they're coming together. I think it's happening more and more. And 10, 20 years from now, I think this conversation is going to be much more unified. And I agree with you 100%. And it's one of the things that, I'm trying to bridge that gap, because I see the same thing. I see these two worlds kind of circling each other, but just being afraid to really become united. And, I worked in tech and for 20 years, that was, my job, and working with, technologists and innovation, and really tied in a lot with science. And so I was, really able to develop both sides of my own brain. So for me, it made sense. And, talking with people and gravitating to people who understood this sort of fusion theory of bringing together these worlds, and knowing that they actually support each other instead of contradict each other.
Mm-hmm. Can you access it by meditation?
Yeah. Meditation.
Yeah.
Good.
No, what are your thoughts on meditation? Because I dabble a little bit, and then, like, meditation to me is like, it's kind of like carbs. You can't, just to me, it's like you go and you go crazy on it, and then you kind of scale back. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So meditation is really helpful for using your intuition. It's not necessary. It's not a requirement for intuition. But what's great about meditation is that it gets us into this space where we can quiet our thoughts, where there's, this opportunity to listen to those little drop-ins, because our insight comes in the places between our rational thinking mind that's usually going a mile a minute. So meditation serves to slow us down, get us into that quiet place. And it's just as good to go for a ride or a run or take a hot shower or bath as it is to meditate, if you can quiet your mind and get into that open space where your intuition can speak.
Right.
Is hypnotism
Hypnotism.
Hypnotism. Yeah,
I've corrected you a billion times.
that's fine. I'm never going to say it right. Hypnotism. Can hypnotism bring out intuition?
You know, I don't know how to speak to that honestly, because I've never worked with hypnosis and intuition. I would imagine there's people like, Edgar Casey, who was amazing and did wonderful things with his intuition and during those sleeping states. So I think the answer is yes. I personally haven't worked that way for me, because it's about getting into that higher conscious place where we're more awake and more alert and more connected.
So how do you do that? What does that mean? Getting into that higher conscious place. How do you do that? How is intuition for dummies, so to speak? What would you tell somebody who is...
That's your next book title, by the way.
I know,
Intuition for dummies.
How do you take someone who thinks they're not intuitive at all and say, this is how you become intuitive?
Yeah, and that's actually what I do with my husband. He's a cybersecurity guy, so an army guy. So he was like, intuition, like he didn't know what I was talking about when we met, and now he's like the best person using intuition all the time and talking to his team about it. So it really is a matter of really just, first of all, understanding what intuition is, because there's so many misconceptions about it, that it's this super woo thing, or that you have to talk to angels and spirits, which is fine. You can do that with your intuition, but that's not the core of intuition. The core of intuition is really, harnessing that part of ourselves that we've been taught to not look at because we don't understand how to use it. So really getting into this space. So, intuition is really about energy. So we want to be able to be on a high energy frequency. When we're in a place where we're in a high level of frequency, feeling good, feeling uplifted, raising our spirits, it's much easier to open up to intuitive guidance because it exists on that higher frequency. And I realized this really on, because when I was having those experiences that I talked about in my younger days, they would always happen in times when I was really happy, or I had a great day, or something really good happened to me because I had a shift that happened. And then I started to realize, when I made that shift happen, and you can do that through meditation and through affirmations, and there's ways that you can actually work with your own energy and lift it up, that more of this stuff would start to happen as I did that. So you hear people talking about high vibe living and all that stuff, but there's actually a real element to that. There's a real, again, when we get to physics, something shifts in our energy level. Think about it when you're not feeling good, or you're sleepy, or you're tired, you can't really think straight. You don't really get good ideas, because intuition is very much tied to inspiration and that whole creative process. So when you're on those lower frequency levels, on those unconscious levels, it can be harder for your intuition to get through. So getting into the place of being awake and healthy and feeling good really aligns you with that intuitive frequency.
So how does somebody get into that position
without giving away the book? Without going into the book, because we want people to buy the book.
No, yeah, because the book really is a doing book. It teaches you all of this stuff. And that's what's so great about, I didn't want to write another book talking about how great intuition was. Don't just take it from me. I want you to go out and try it for yourself and experience it for yourself, because that's how you really realize its power. When you witness it and you're like, oh my God, I just knew this thing that I could never know. Somehow I knew it. It's real. I have to explain this. And that's really where it all starts. So, practicing your intuition, in the book, there's exercises you can do to practice every day, getting little hits, having those moments of serendipity, getting into those connections of like we've all heard those times where, I was going to say something and someone else said it, or I picked up the phone just as someone was going to call me, right? More and more of this stuff starts to happen as you start putting your attention on your intuition. So really the first couple of things you need to do, and actually on my website, I have a free Wake Up Your Intuition guide that goes over all this stuff, real simple stuff. First of all, slow down, right? We have to slow down. We're so busy. We're running around.
100%.
Yeah. So when we slow down, we get into that mindful space, where we can hear our intuition a little more, take those moments, meditate, go for that walk or jog or whatever to open up space. And then really start paying attention to any thoughts, impressions, ideas that come from nowhere. And that's really important, because we get them all the time, but we dismiss them as random thoughts or chatter, when so many times you're getting really valuable insights that can be true, real guidance in your life. Like, oh, you just have this thought, well, I should, have, someone drive me to the doctor's office today, but you're like, I can go by myself. And then you get there and you get out and you had a test and you can't drive, right? That kind of thing happens just in a really practical way every day. And the more we learn to listen to that little part of our intuition, it just makes our life easier and saves us trouble and really gets us aligned with that sort of ease of life.
So is this psychic ability? Is this something, because like we believe in mediums, we believe in psychics. We have been told by mediums stuff that no one on planet Earth could say. We lost our father 3 years ago. We appreciate it. He smoked his whole life. He wasn't giving it up. And he went out the way he wanted to go out. And we're still connected with him more now than we were even here. Mm-hmm. He warned me in November 2019. He said to me through this guy, George Anderson, who's a medium, but also a psychic. He said, you better buckle up for 2020. It is going to be a roller coaster. Wow. It's going to be hard. You're going to survive it, but just be very careful, be mindful. Blah, blah. I'm like, 2020. I'm like, our business is booming. We're writing books. We're doing all this. 2020 came, and as you and the rest of the world knows, went to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, our day job, we're in the travel business, and obviously.
But I don't want to like veer too far off course. Are mediums using this intuition? Are psychics? Yeah, they are.
Probably better than anybody.
And honestly, mediumship and spiritualism was my early gateway into this work, because when I had to figure out
how so.
Yeah, well, so here I am. I'm having all these experiences that I needed to understand. That was 20 years ago. We didn't have the internet, right? We just had some books to read. But if I wanted to go out and meet with someone and learn about my intuition, psychic development was the only way. And so I sort of naturally gravitated toward that. And I actually worked with some really wonderful mediums and learned a lot from them about that whole aspect. And that's when my first book, The Psychic Workshop, was based on my work with mediums and spiritual.
Really?
Yeah. But it's really evolved from that. Like, I really feel like that's a piece, and it's important, and it's true. Like, there are different forms of life in the world. Just because we are not in these physical bodies doesn't mean that we don't exist. And I have had the exact same experiences as you, and I 100% can confirm that. And so just really realizing that we're multidimensional beings, and there's more to us than our physical bodies.
100%.
Exactly. And so we can use our intuition to connect beyond the physical realms.
You know what helped me understand mediumship, intuition, psychic ability? We interviewed a gentleman by the name of Eben Alexander. He had a near-death experience, and what really
he's like the gold. Pardon me, Eric, he's like the gold standard for NDEs. I mean, this guy, he was in a coma for a week,
and he's a neurosurgeon.
Oh wow!
Who didn't believe,
and then he had these experiences. And he said there has been documentation done by scientists. There has been reports and studies done that your thoughts and your memories, and I'm assuming your intuition, is not in your brain. It does not exist there. It exists somewhere else in your soul, because we're very clearly hearing from our Father, and he's dead.
Yes.
All right. He's in.
We buried him.
We buried him along with his brain, and then all of a sudden we're having conversations with him, right? And I
love that.
Obviously his thoughts and memories went with him wherever he is in the on the other side.
Is that the superconscious? Is that what when you kind of like shuffle off this mortal coil, do you take your subconscious into the super?
Yeah, I really feel like that's kind of a simple way of looking at it, because intuition is the universal language. And that's what I like to tell people. If you're going to invest in anything in this life, invest in your intuition, because it's the one thing you can take with you when you go. Because whether we're communicating with spirits, quote unquote, other forms of life, pets, animals, each other, that's the way. That is the energetic form of communication that it runs the universe. It's way beyond our language that we use here to communicate with each other, and has such an instant capability. And it's true for anyone who's also had an out of body experience. I can tell you that my brain and my consciousness have been in two separate places on more than one occasion.
Did you have an out of body experience?
Yeah, I've had several.
Please go into that. What was that like?
What were the circumstances of it too?
Well, and I did just touch on that. That core idea of both times that I've had really good ones have been on times when I felt really good. So I think things like this can happen from an energetic shift. So you can either have a traumatic accident or something like that can happen, right? Or you can just be in a place, and this is a way we'd ideally all want to do it if we want to have these experiences, is to uplift ourselves, is to feel good, right? When you get into a place, both nights I had a wonderful day. I went to bed feeling great. And I think they both actually kind of happened by accident, because I was sleeping where I wasn't normally sleeping. And And the first time I was very young, I was 19, and I was visiting a friend in Toronto, and I was upstairs sleeping in the bedroom, and I just woke up in the middle of the night looking at this Monet poster, and I was like, wow, I love Monet. I'm an artist. This is beautiful. And all of a sudden I had this thought, I'm like, wait a second. I realized she had put the Monet poster at the top of her ceiling, and I was looking at it at eye level. And I just had this moment, and I thought, how can I be looking at this at eye level? And as soon as I saw that, I was like, boom, I felt this feeling, and I was sat up in bed, and my whole body was pins and needles. And that was the first time that I realized that something was up. Like, and I just sat there, right? And you're a kid at that point. I was like, kind of brushed it off. I was just like, that was really weird, but I kind of brushed it off, and then started happening more and more. And I noticed that there was a theme really to being in that high vibe place where you could go out there and you kind of like, it literally lifts you up. And I remember that night having to kind of hold myself in my body, because it was just like lifting up. I was just there's just a part of me.
Can you access that like this? Can you personally just be like, all right, I'm going there?
No, it's not that easy.
Okay.
I wish it was that easy, but I think there are forces at work. I can really prime my energy to do work like that, but I can't just like hop out of my body. I think there is some dynamics involved with, it happens meaningfully or it happens accidentally. Either there's that kind of thing where the body is in an alignment somehow and it just happens and it's this fluke, or, it happens for a meaningful awareness or something to teach you something or show you something. So that's the other thing to remember about all this work. It's so exciting and it's full of wonder and all of this mystery. But when this stuff happens, it's not just playtime, it's there for a meaningful reason, which is our growth and our evolution and expanding the human consciousness to be more than it is. Because we're like children right now. This world is a horrible place in so many ways. And it's so important for us to come together and lift ourselves up and overcome our divisions. And really, I think that's what our intuition is trying to do.
Can you expand on the simulation aspect? Is that just a term so we can wrap our monkey brains around it?
I know it goes. There's a lot of,
or is it deeper, or is it more scientific than that? Where what research and what have you found out about the simulation? Is it like the Matrix?
Well, and I interviewed Jesse Schell, who you may have seen. He was on Through the Wormhole with Morgan Freeman, talking about he's a game designer. You should check that out. He's a CMU professor and a friend of mine, and we're talking. We have an interview on YouTube too, talking about this. And he wrote this whole book on the game design and how it parallels life. And this episode really talked about life is a simulation and how plausible and the metaphor is. So whether it is for our monkey minds, because as human beings we do have a limited consciousness. I don't think we could even fathom what's really happening on the other side of this world that we live in our small brains. But it is a good metaphor to help us to understand, especially with information and data being carried electronically and with energetic elements, because we've been for all of, past centuries, we've been so like tied into the physical body and everything having to be this real physical experience, right? Realizing that those subtleties are powerful and that there is a kind of matrix behind it all that connects everything.
Unbelievable. You had multiple. I'm fascinated by the out-of-body experience. You've had multiple. Can you expound on a few more?
Well, I'll tell you the biggest one of my life was when I was 23. I was 22 at the time, but it really
only like 5 years ago, right? 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. Just a couple years ago.
Years ago. Fine. Fair enough.
So I was 25, and again, I had a really great day, and I was the same kind of thing. I went to bed, and I had just a similar experience of being in a different place, and that I shouldn't have been. And when I woke up the next morning, I had what I would call my awakening. And when I read Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now, like 15 years later, I realized that is what had happened to me, because I was in this place of peace. Like I could not ever imagine. I was young. I was a kid. So things are tumultuous when you're a kid. I was on my own. I was going through hard times. And I went through this solid week of just all I wanted to do was just sit and look out of my window or be on the park bench and just be. Like, I didn't even know presence. Nobody talked about presence and being, all that stuff. That wasn't a thing yet. So I had no idea what was happening to me. And I was so confused about it, but I loved it. And I just wrote in my journal and really realized that I knew I had touched something, or that something had touched me or made a shift inside me that allowed me to experience a different dimension of being, of trust and love and all of that stuff we talk about. Like, I just felt it. And gradually, unfortunately, over the weeks, it wore off, and I went back to my daily life. But I never, ever forgot that. And I think about it every day, and that experience every day, because I truly feel like that's when we die, when we pass, when we move on, that is that feeling of completion, that feeling of all interconnectedness with life itself that is at the core of all of our being.
Can your intuition be wrong?
No.
Really? Really?
Yeah, and that's like my favorite question. Like, because people are like, well, what about when my intuition is wrong? Like, your intuition is never wrong. Your intuition is by nature truth. So chances are, if something went awry in the intuitive process, either we mistook intuition, something else for intuition, right? So, or sometimes we didn't see the big picture and the outcome hasn't happened yet, right? So sometimes we think, oh, I did this thing, it was this terrible, my intuition totally told me to do this, and I like crashed and burned. Well, maybe you needed to crash and burn, because what happens next is what you really need, right? So intuition isn't always going to tell you right there, the next thing is going to solve all your problems, but it is going to take you to the path that you need to learn the lessons that you need to learn.
Does journaling play a part in intuition?
Yeah. So
Also.
Yeah, so it's journaling and intuition, because creativity and intuition are really another, they really go hand in hand. It's that process of bringing down insight and inspiration and ideas. And so really any creative act is this process of channeling our intuition to really, bring information in the world, bring beauty in the world if you're an artist. And it's a great way to just really flex your intuitive muscles, creativity.
I just want to say, I'm a writer. I've written over 20 books. I'm a published author. The show's not about me, but when I wrote my books, it came from somewhere else.
Yes.
There was no way that I was sitting and typing and I was like, my name is Michael. This is how it's done. The words just flow through you. And it was in this book by called Do the Work by Stephen Pressman. It was a life-changing book. I don't know if you've read that, but he said, as a writer, he's like, you're grabbing from the superconscious conscience, and you're taking it, because there's like this, it's like a black room, right? It's like an empty black room that's the size of the universe, and everything just is formed from this room, and you're picking from this room. Is that what intuition is?
That's a great analogy. It absolutely is. Yeah.
As for like our small minds, like, okay, there's a room in your house. There's nothing in it, but you could form anything you want from inside that black void. Mm-hmm. And you can go and write books, and you can create stories. But I mean, be an artist.
But intuition intuition isn't necessarily going to make you $1 million, but it's going to, is it going to put you on the track for success?
Well, I always say, because people are like, what is the ROI, on my intuition, right? And when you're operating by your intuition, you're operating on your full steam, your highest potential. So when you're following that, I mean, you have much more likelihood to be successful at your project, to make money, to do all of those things, to be able to relate to your customers, your clients, to know the new products that people really need. That's all intuitive, right? All that stuff, you can't strategize that without your intuition. So once you're really operating on that level, things align, and it's that alignment that brings.
Is so crazy. That is so nuts. There, we own a global car service, and like when there's an error, when there's an issue, when there's something happening somewhere in this world where a client is being missed or something, Eric and I feel it. Yeah. We feel that there's something wrong.
There's a disturbance in the force.
Yes. I say it all the time. Star Wars.
Well, I mean, to me, Star Wars was a documentary.
George Lucas knew what
he did.
George Lucas knew exactly what he was talking about back in the 70s.
Yeah, that's 100% a thing. Yeah, it's just like that.
A disturbance in the force. Our mother's a medium. Oh my God, Kim, this is crazy. Our mother's a medium. She has told me things that were weeks in advance. She goes, there's going to be a plane crash in our neighborhood. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why would you even say that? No joke. 2 weeks after she said that, a small propeller plane crashed in the people in the fields, a couple miles from our house.
Yeah.
That was I would say about 10 years ago. But like she saw
And that was before she really recognized her
her
ability.
Right. But like, so I have these cognitive dreams. This may be with what you're talking about, and I'm searching for this since I was a little boy. My dreams come true. It's and like I'm sleeping. I'm a good sleeper. When I hit the pillow, I am out like a light, and I'm out for 7 hours straight. And my dreams, I will predict the future. I did it recently. This is like silly, but like I knew the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I told Eric this live on air. I said the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to win. I saw Tom Brady holding up another trophy. I saw it in my mind. I said it on air. I put it on my Facebook profile to show that I did this. Tom Brady won his 7th Super Bowl. Is that intuition? And can you access it while you're sleeping? Does it come to you in dreams?
So that's so great. And I love that story. And I always call dreaming sort of backdoor intuition. So intuition come in from the front door, and that's how we get into that high vibe place. Or sometimes, it just wants to just slip in through the back door. And that's where, and it can be very, very powerful. And the whole dreamscape has many different ways of opening us up, because our rational mind's out of the way there. So it's, it's fertile grounds for our intuition. And sometimes it'll come through with you'll just wake up in the morning and you'll just have a thought in your head, or you'll just have an experience that you remember. Right. So, yeah. 100%. So,
you know what happened to me? It happened this morning. I'm an analytical guy, and I do reports, and I've been wanting this type of report, and I was going to parse the data in a certain way, and I just could never figure it quite out. And I've been ruminating about it for 2 years. And finally today I woke up and I had it, and it just clicked. And it was so weird because it was right in front of me the entire time.
Is that your intuition?
On how to get it done. It was right in front of me. And then all of a sudden today I figured it out.
You're like Einstein. That's what he used to do all the time. Be like, I'm trying to solve a problem. And he would talk about, he'd just wake up in the middle of the night and he'd know the answer. It'd just come to him like that.
That's the subconscious. That's intuition. This is right up our alley, Kim.
Exactly.
Stuff.
So before we wrap up, Kim, what's your, you look like someone that plans. What's your game plan? Or do you have other books in the pipeline? What's your goal for the next year or two?
Yeah. So I live, eat, sleep, breathe intuition, as you can tell. And, I have a school. I have an online school that I started 3 years ago. So I'm growing that. I'm, teaching people and having online courses and programs, really, because my mission is to raise awareness of intuition, and also to keep pushing this and to keep pushing my own experiences with intuition so that I can continue to share new things, because I really feel like this is just the beginning. This is an evolving story. Intuition isn't just like, boom, this is it. There is so much untapped potential here. We have no idea what we're capable of if we keep following this path of intuition and keep unraveling that thread. So this is the threshold. This is just the beginning. So I'm hoping to continue, and who knows where it's going to end, but I'll be spending the rest of my days finding out.
Kim, where can people find you? Please plug away.
KimChestney.com, my website, and intuitionlab.com, and Radical Intuition, the book, you can get online at your favorite bookstore everywhere.
It's incredible. And I know you have a podcast too, right? You're on YouTube as well.
I am on YouTube. You can find me at Kim Chestney on YouTube. I have tons of resources and interviews with lots of people. You guys will be on there too if you're on YouTube. So I love it.
Thank you. This YouTube game is a hard game.
It is.
It's a very, very hard nut to crack.
Eric and I thought we were going to waltz onto YouTube, be like, oh, we're two, decent looking, schmucks from Long Island. We'll figure it out. We're 2 years in, and we're still trying to figure it out.
Well, I love talking with you guys. This has been fantastic. So I feel like
thank you for coming on. And anytime you want to come on, if you're promoting a new book, promoting anything, please, you have an open forum on Okon Bros. This is your platform.
And hang out for a minute. I'm going to play the outro, and I want to
everyone go get Kim's book. Okay. Right now, go connect with your intuition.
Radical intuition.
Because this is real. Kim is a documentarian, and I
am.
You are, and what you're showing is that Star Wars and the Matrix, it's all a documentary.
Exactly.
So this is great. Kim, thank you.
Everybody, like, subscribe, and share this show. We appreciate everybody tuning in, and we will see you next time.